So, way back in the day after Avengers Endgame, when the Marvel Netflix shows were starting to get canceled, this was back when Disney Plus was starting to be a thing, like they were starting to work on it and introduce it. Kevin Feige was interviewed about the then like first iterations of the Disney Plus shows, which we knew about was WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki. I think those are the three ones that we knew about back then. He's quoted saying like this is the first time things are going to connect, which is it's a very summarized version of what he said. Which when I read that, it was like it's very clear what he was meaning by that quote, saying before the Marvel TV side, which was again under the same umbrella of Marvel Entertainment, there's Marvel Studios that focused on the movie side. They weren't in TV production. Then there was the Jeff Loeb Marvel TV side, but they worked together, movies and TV, and presented it and marketed everything as Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's several interviews of them talking about each other on how like stuff connects here and there. It was always a one-way relationship though for a few different reasons. One was political drama that was behind the scenes that we know about now. But the big reason that we've got from interviews and stuff like that, and I'm not going to be your Google search, you can do this research yourself. I know because just like I know stuff that we've been expecting for She-Hulk, I followed this stuff. I've been following it since Age of Ultron when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to be a thing. Before it happened. I've been following this shit since day one. I know what happens behind the scenes in the news articles and everything. I remember all this shit. And I can pull it up. It takes a longer time now because it's all watered down by recent article bullshit that keeps bringing up the we got this covered quotes and stuff. The problem with Marvel TV back then, among a lot of things, was the production time worked differently. It was much more traditional TV back then. It was for ABC and later on other networks. They have seasonal arcs. They have to produce a show every year. They have to move production much more quickly. The movies take time, scripts change, and by the time that the movie's out, there's several seasons of this show that's out where they couldn't lead into things properly. So that's the reason why it was a one-way relationship, because the TV side kind of knew like what's happening immediately with the movies and how it can tie stuff in, and specifically in regards to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whereas the movies couldn't really like, okay, where's the TV show going? How are we gonna like meet the movies to connect with the shows? It didn't even really need to be honest. The way that the stories worked, there was really no need to connect those shows with those movies. But for the most part, the TV shows like presented it, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Is it gonna conflict with anything in the movies? And then Marvel Studios basically says, no, we're like this is all good. You're good to do the story however you want it. Or sometimes they'll be like, oh, this character we're introducing this in this show or movie, I should say. A big example of that was Claire Temple's character in the Netflix shows was originally supposed to be, I think, Christine Palmer, which was then going to be used for Doctor Strange. So this is before Doctor Strange was out. So they had to adapt the character, introduce Claire Temple for the Netflix shows. Or they'll say like, oh, this storyline is going to conflict with what we have planned here. Here's how you can change things or whatever. But for the most part, the TV shows kind of worked on their own, and the movies didn't need to address the shows. But they were both in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They were both presented that way. The shows definitely were set in the MCU. And also, let's bring up Jarvis again. Jarvis being an Endgame, same character that was presented in Agent Carter. So Daredevil and Kingpin are not even the first instance of this. What Kevin Feige meant, obviously, if you wanted to find the quote and pull it up, what he meant was everything's under Marvel Studios now. The production works differently. It's not seasonal shows. They're self-contained stories in a 6 to 9 episode story arc that Marvel Studios is able to properly plan and integrate into the MCU proper with the way that their production works. They're not limited to ABC production. They're under Disney Plus now. They have full control over everything. They don't have to have a pilot by this time. They can release the show as they need, which was very tested during the pandemic, where all of those shows had to get delayed. But that's all that means. Because they're able to do this, they're able to properly connect the shows and the movies together, like WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that they weren't able to properly do because of the production work in regards to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the movies that were coming out around that time. And the other examples of shows and movies and stuff. That's all that means. But people take his quote and say, incorrectly, that he confirmed that all the other shows are not canon and that only the Disney Plus shows are canon, when he at no point said any of that. People are under the assumption that Marvel wants to start fresh, but take aspects that they liked out of like the Netflix shows and stuff and restart everything for the MCU. It doesn't make any sense. And the more people argue it, it still doesn't make sense to me. Why would they do that? Those shows are now on Disney Plus, all of them. Isn't the whole point of this thing is to put people on Disney Plus, keep them on Disney Plus, and watch stuff on Disney Plus? That's the whole marketing aspect of everything that Disney's doing right now. Disney Plus is their product. They want to sell you subscriptions. There's still an art aspect of these Marvel movies, sure. But the end goal, business side, is that they want you to keep giving them recurring money. But it makes no sense to me that they put all this investment in. Like, they didn't cancel the Netflix shows because they're like, oh, this screws up the MCU, we're going to cancel everything. No, the rights were under Netflix, and Marvel Studios wanted to handle everything and put everything, not Disney. Let's put aside Marvel Studios. Disney wants everything on Disney Plus. Like, goddamn, that's also why they went into an agreement with Sony after their exclusivity for the Spider-Man movies on Starz and then Netflix. They said, we're fine with you doing whatever exclusivity you want, but, you know, we would like it if you would put your stuff on Disney Plus after that exclusivity. So we're going to start seeing Spider-Man Sony movies on Disney Plus at some point because of that. Because Disney is fighting for that, to have everybody on one platform. That's why the Netflix shows got canceled. And people are going to say stuff about the poor ratings and everything. Maybe there's an aspect to that. Maybe that is true. But I think regardless, Disney still wants everything on Disney Plus. So there's some sort of decision or push or anything. And I know you're saying, like, well, it's Netflix's decision. We don't know that. We don't know how the contract works or what the deal was for getting these characters on Netflix. But it was kind of suspicious that, okay, Disney was working on Disney Plus and Endgame happened. And then all of a sudden, oh, these shows are starting to get canceled one by one by one. All of them, not just like some of them surviving. All of them. Even the stuff like people were raving about, like Punisher. I remember like nobody had a bad thing to say about Punisher. Everybody loved Punisher. That got canceled. Like there's not one thing that survived. I get that it started with Luke Cage and people were like, well, yeah, it's obviously Luke Cage. Like who wants to... like it didn't get a lot of views, and then Iron Fist, like obviously Iron Fist or whatever. Then Daredevil, the big one, Jessica Jones, Punisher. It was one by one. It was an obvious. This was after they were announcing, "Hey, we're doing Disney Plus." It was such an obvious thing for me, and we haven't seen those characters since then because there was a rights thing. It was a legal rights thing. Disney had to wait out until the very end which was when Hawkeye and Spider-Man No Way Home was in the works. It timed perfectly for those characters. I even see in like behind the scenes interviews, people are talking about for She-Hulk even. They keep talking like, are we even allowed to do this? Like Marvel's going to say no at some point, right? Because before then, they weren't allowed to because Netflix had the rights to. So this all lines up. It just all lines up. Like it could have been that Marvel's just like, hey, we really like the Netflix shows, but in order to keep doing them, they need to be on Disney Plus. So let's start the process right now. Cancel everything. Wait out the period, then get it all introduced so we can continue with these characters the right way. And also move those shows that we like, that people like, over to our platform so they're not on a competitor's platform. And then they decide, hey, we're going to start introducing these characters again. It's a good idea to use the same actors, the same costume, the same theme songs, the same mannerisms, the same everything. And Spider-Man No Way Home, Hawkeye, and She-Hulk now, they're doing all that. Doesn't it make more sense to say, hey, we have a reason for people to watch more about this character on our platform. Here's more of their backstory. Rather than, oh, hey, we're going to cause audience confusion. Here's this character, same actor, same everything. And also a show that completely contradicts what we're going to be setting up in the future. It makes no sense to me. The people who argue that, I don't get where your thought process is. And I've said this multiple times. The only link, the only logical explanation I see to this is people keep using the cherry picking argument. That Marvel's going to cherry pick things that they liked about the Netflix shows so that they can redo characters that they want the way that they want it, or reintroduce storylines, or remove complications of any sort of contradictions towards the MCU. Which, by the way, I've been watching through all of the Defender saga again. Not once have I seen any sort of contradiction to the MCU. I've been keeping my eye out. I've been starting from the beginning of Daredevil. I'm currently at season 2 of Iron Fist, and I haven't seen anything that contradicts with the MCU. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., another story. We're going to focus on Daredevil and the Defender saga right now. There has been nothing that contradicts it. But speaking of Iron Fist, this is where I'm going with this. It seems universally across the internet, most people seem to have an agreement that Iron Fist is the black sheep of the bunch. It's the one that everyone hates. It's the one that everyone says sucks and to avoid. Although I'd argue that the first season of Iron Fist is more important to watch for Daredevil's entire story than Luke Cage. Again, I like both shows, but as a whole, Iron Fist is more important towards Daredevil if you want Daredevil's full story. I've come to the conclusion that everybody hates Iron Fist so much that they can't possibly conceive that a show that bad in their mind can exist in the MCU, and that the obvious conclusion is that Kevin Feige must also hate it and therefore wants to scrap that part of the Netflix show, which means that they have to cherry pick things about that they like about the Netflix shows, which is their method of explaining how Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are returning to the MCU as what seems like the exact same character, yet somehow the Netflix shows are not the same continuity as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or that they are variants and they're in a separate timeline or something. Whereas for me, it makes much more sense to just say, hey, the bad show also exists in the MCU. And also the good stuff is here too. Let's focus on the good stuff. Because it's not a perfect world, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. Bad stories exist. Just let them have existed. I mean, are you going to ignore that people are complaining about Marvel Phase 4? About She-Hulk? About Thor the Dark World? The Incredible Hulk? Iron Man 2? You're going to ignore it? Hey, let's take it a step further. You're gonna ignore. I mean, I people are, but you're ignoring Morbius and Venom. Let There Be Carnage having a connection to the MCU as well. I was not a fan of I Am Groot. If Marvel says I Am Groot's in the continuity as part of the MCU, okay, cool. I don't need to watch I Am Groot again. I acknowledge that it exists and it's there and that I didn't like it and that I don't have to watch it, but it doesn't mean that because I don't like it, it didn't happen. I think regardless of what you think, Iron Fist happened, like for better or worse. And even if it's for worse, like you want to take another stab at a character and then maybe it'll go bad again and maybe audiences aren't going to appreciate it. I guarantee if Marvel said, hey, we're rebooting Iron Fist because it wasn't done the way that we would have wanted to do it, or I guess specifically Kevin Feige said, hey, if I did Iron Fist differently, I would do it this way. And so that's what we're going to do because I control everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel Studios, and my word is above everything. So we're going to redo Iron Fist my way. Even if he said, like, this is going to be the best proper portrayal of Iron Fist. People have such a bad, sour taste of Iron Fist in their mouth because of the Netflix show. I guarantee you they wouldn't show up, those same people, they wouldn't show up for an Iron Fist reboot in the MCU. Why rehash that story? Why go through it all again for the potential for it to fail again? Or to not even fail, for it to be perceived as badly as it was before. Just continue with the character. I think what was worse with I know I'm going on a Defenders rant, but I feel like this needs to be said because of this Daredevil episode, and it's been such a headache for me online, especially with the trolls that do the search trends and jump on and attack you. Like people did that to me on Twitter. They do it all the time. And they'll go with like, no, you're wrong because of the reason that you're dumb. Or they'll bring up stuff like, oh no, it's because of this. It's like, where are you getting that from? It's like, well, that's just the way it is. Like if you can't back your shit up, then just don't even bother. Like why are you responding to me when you're so confidently wrong? Anyways, my theory on Iron Fist, why everybody is so hung up on it, and why everybody is in this mindset that it can't possibly exist in the MCU, and therefore it's the catalyst for why all of Marvel TV continuity is broken apart and can't exist in the MCU because of this one character that I didn't like. By the way, it's not even the entire show. Like I see people like I see people like jump through hoops trying to explain this logic. Like, oh, Iron Fist is bad. Oh, okay, scrap the whole show. Well, you know what? Like, it wasn't the actor's fault. It was writing also. Like, okay, so we'll keep the actor. Well, I don't know, but keep like maybe I don't know about the actor. Like, okay, so we start everybody. Then I guess starts fresh. We recast everybody. Well, no, like Colleen Wing was great, and his family, the side characters were like they're pretty cool too. And the villain, I like the villain. The stuff with the hand, yeah, it finished up the Daredevil story. It made it complete. Yeah, keep the stuff with the hand. Okay, well then, what are we talking about here then? Like, what's the problem? I think the biggest thing about Iron Fist that is the reason for all this nonsense. It's that the character wasn't portrayed in a way that was likable or representative of the comic. And it was because that character wasn't there yet. The 2 seasons of Iron Fist and the Defenders series was him being led up to that point. People complain the character is annoying. He's not the peaceful, zen kind of character. He gets angry a lot. He lashes out, makes stupid decisions. Yeah, that's them showing you his transition into Iron Fist proper. The Iron Fist that we know from the comics. Have you read the original Spider-Man comics? Peter Parker is annoying. He makes dumb decisions. He gets angry and lashes out. He is not the Spider-Man that he is today. Granted, I think that's all just the writing of the 60s compared to the writing of today. But the point is that, yeah, he wasn't the Iron Fist that he needed to be or that we wanted to see in those seasons because he wasn't there yet. By the end of season 2, from what I recall, again, I'm starting my rewatch through that series. I'm like halfway through it. From what I recall, he reached that point at the end of the season. So if it makes much more sense to be like, okay, keep the bad show. The bad show exists. It's there. If you want the backstory, it's there for you to have it. But it's not necessary for where we want to continue Iron Man's story Iron Fist's story going forward in the MCU. Because that's not important to the other stories that we have, but it doesn't negate the continuity and the established backstory from those Netflix shows. Like, do you need to know about Iron Fist's family drama and his business and everything and the family dynamics in those shows when he shows up in Secret Wars? I did say when, by accident, but I'm going to stick with it. So I'm calling it now. Iron Fist will appear in Secret Wars. You can hold me to that. No, the shows are not going to be necessary, but his character progress is. Those shows can still exist. They can be bad. You can hate them. Whatever. You don't have to watch them. But take that character as he evolved at the end of season 2 and drop him into the MCU. And there you go. You have your Iron Fist. I'm not saying anything about recasting the actor or not. Marvel recasts all the time. No matter what you say, and that's another argument I'm not going to get into. Marvel does recast, so if they want to recast Finn Jones, I guess they could do that. I don't think they will. I think they'll have the same character, the same actor, show up in the MCU. But regardless of if the actor's changed or not, the character, take that character from season 2, at the end of season 2, drop him into the MCU. There's your Iron Fist. Just be like, that character shows up. This is Iron Fist. He has a glowing fist. He can make his guns glow if he has guns, and he can shoot guns and like curve the pistols. He's very chill. He knows how to center his chi. He's very skilled at martial arts. If you want to know more, there's 2 seasons and a spin-off that we have on Disney Plus that you can watch. Otherwise, you don't need to know that stuff. This is who the character is. Here's who he's fighting. Also, he's teaming up with Luke Cage because they're heroes for hire. There you go. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think Daredevil Born Again, it's 18 episodes. They're not doing 18 episodes for any other show. And 18 episodes for a show itself is long. And one thing I liked about the Disney Plus shows is they're self-contained stories. They're short. They're longer than a movie, but short enough to where you can expand the character's backstory that we haven't seen fleshed out in any of the movies, and give them a proper length to like show like here's the story that we want to tell. And for better or worse, She-Hulk is, well, it kind of feels like the story's going nowhere. I said my theory, but even that, as the 9 episodes, it's a self-contained story, whatever. Daredevil is twice as long. That's a lot of filler stuff. Like, even watching the Netflix shows, especially like Luke Cage season 2, there's a lot of filler stuff that they just added in to fill out the season. And I'm afraid they're going to do that with Daredevil. But there's a reason why they're doing that. And one of those reasons could be that it's a platform that this series, the season that they're doing of Daredevil Born Again, is a platform to reintroduce some characters into the MCU. So we could see all of the Defenders characters show up in Daredevil Born Again to explain where they are without giving a new show for every single character and a new season for every single character, so that Marvel can catch up and put them in Secret Wars if they wanted to. So I think that's the end goal of what they have planned. I think it makes no sense to like reboot everything and start from scratch. And it's clearly not what they're doing. What we've seen so far is the opposite of that. I made a tweet to like kind of as a response to a troll that was attacking me. I said Secret Wars can start off with Daredevil talking to Quake from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., recapping everything that happened in the Cloak and Dagger show, and these MCU purists which also includes New Rockstars and all the other major YouTube channels, are still gonna say, no, that doesn't mean those shows are canon. And again, I have a huge headache, and it's super late at night while I'm recording this. So that's my rant. I don't know if I'm gonna make that rant as like a separate video or something at this point. But the episode 8 of She-Hulk is fantastic. The ending I wasn't really excited about because I felt it was forced. And I feel like this show's going nowhere, to be honest. I feel like if anything, it's setting up the leader to be in Captain America New World Order and hopefully maybe introduce Red Hulk. She-Hulk kind of teased it as much in this episode as well. But otherwise, the show was funny. It was fun. Seeing She-Hulk and Daredevil team up was fun. Seeing them in their superhero costumes fighting Leapfrog was fun. So yeah, I can ignore like the whatever side and just enjoy the show for what it is. It's just a fun comedy set in the MCU, which is ideally what I was hoping for. So I got pretty much that out of the show. So I'm content with it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's not my favorite Marvel thing. It's definitely lowest on the list for Disney Plus shows, at least, or for Phase 4 in general. I shouldn't say that. I think maybe I definitely like this more than What I Am Groot. I guess maybe I put this under What If. I'm not too sure. But anyways, I'll see you in the last episode, and hopefully there's some sort of payoff or end kind of thing. I have no idea. Go listen to the Hip Hop's MCU podcast. You can tell I'm tired because it's almost 5 a.m. This is like the latest I've ever stayed up. Marvel fans have me pissed off.